It's 7:05, and the rest of the country is covering St. Louis. And anyway, I'll play it straight. It's very frustrating. Ryan Burrow is with us. Much rather talk Cubs Cardinals with you, Ryan Burrow, with ABC News. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning. I'd rather talk Cubs Cardinals too. How's that sound?
Yeah, there you go. So outside looking in, what is getting out of St. Louis, and what is the world hearing about St. Louis?
Yeah, obviously the broken windows and overturned planters. It's the visual images that we're all seeing, and it kind of runs contrast as to what we're hearing from the interim police chief, that everything's under control. The police have this. It seemed as though at least Saturday there were 33 arrests Friday, 9 Saturday, and it seemed like things had been kind of cooling off a little bit, and then all of a sudden another flare-up yesterday with 80 arrests. Now, many of those in that situation weren't necessarily people who were throwing things at officers. They were just people who were told to leave and never did. So they were rounded up. I know St. Louis Post-Dispatch writer got kind of wrangled in with all of that, as well as some bloggers who were kind of covering the event. So the number may be slightly inflated. But the interim police chief seeming to believe they had it under control, and they just needed to kind of, put the hammer down. This is what we've seen in these kind of demonstrations, by the way, in Chicago and Minneapolis and some of these other kind of situations involving police. Is you've got these main protests led usually by clergy or community activist groups like that, and then by about 6:30 or 8 o'clock, or when the sun starts going down, they say, okay, we've said our piece, and then essentially some people kind of continue on with the demonstrations in places where police don't want them, and that those are kind of the X factors, and it appears that's what we saw last night.
We are waking up to images this morning of downtown windows busted. You've got the flower pots that try to beautify the streets. Those are busted all over the place. You've got the Central West End picking up the pieces. Does anybody outside of St. Louis, is the protesters' message getting out? I mean, do people know why they're protesting?
You know what? This Stockley case, I'm sorry, the case itself is just not something that's on a lot of people's radars,
right?
Because it did happen in 2011. It happened before Ferguson. So a lot of people, a lot of the stations I'm speaking with say, well, what is this?
Right.
What is this all about? Was this recent? When did this happen? So from that perspective, the message is a little muddled, and I don't necessarily know that it has the same impact as what we've seen in Cleveland or what we've seen in Chicago or Minnesota or some of these other Baltimore, some of these other big demonstrations. But let's face it, the images we saw yesterday will start to raise some eyebrows.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, Ryan Burrow, ABC News correspondent in Chicago. Good weekend sweep. It's not over yet, though.
No, we still got those pesky Brewers to worry about.
Well, and you got 4 coming here in St. Louis next week, so.
Sure.
Yeah, and then the big news is it's one thing, as I said earlier, to surround the mayor's house. It's another thing to cancel the U2 concert or Ed Sheeran. That's when the white liberals really get angry.
Well, they said they were going to shut down the town economically on Friday. That was their goal when that verdict was read, and that would be a success story in their book. That these big money-generating events did not happen.
Ryan Burrow, have a good week. Thanks for checking in.
Take care.
These are the same people who might say, how many of them